Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs. Mike D'Antoni revolutionized basketball. And overnight, the Phoenix Suns built one of the most exciting, innovative teams the NBA has ever seen, fondly known as 7 seconds or less. But they never won a championship thanks to numerous strokes of bad luck. This is the story of perhaps the unluckiest team in NBA history and the dynasty that never happened. In 2004, the Phoenix Suns had just won 29 games, a bottom-tier team in the NBA. But then, a franchise turning point. 29-year-old free agent Steve Nash was offered the long-term deal he was seeking, as Phoenix believed the Canadian point guard was the key to unlocking a high-octane offense.
I grew up, like Wayne Gretzky was my hero when I was a kid, one of my heroes. And for anyone who watched hockey, he used to skate behind the net and stop, like facing the play with his back to the boards. So why is that ingenious? Because he's just changed the perspective of all the defenders, including the goalkeeper, the goaltender. So the goalie's sitting there, the puck stopped behind him. So when he does this, what does he see? He doesn't know, where the traffic's going.
Right, exactly.
So he's doing this. Then defenders, they usually have their back to their goal, seeing everything in front of them.
Right.
Now they have to turn and face their own goal. So they don't know who's cutting, who's changing, right? So it always resonated with me how he was able to flip the script on the defense, change their perspective, put them at a disadvantage.
This foreign-born underdog who only received one scholarship coming out of high school from Santa Clara proved to be the ideal fit for another unlikely figure, Mike D'Antoni, who only had limited NBA experience and was promoted months earlier to head coach.
I spent 21 years in Italy playing and coaching, so you know, I'd be crazy not to use all the stuff that I learned there, but I just got a life awakening experience, and from everything, reading books to the culture to eating.
I think he saw us playing pickup basketball. He's like, why would I slow this down and get into sets that are gonna make them less effective than opening this up?
The 7 seconds or less era was born in an unlikely place, pickup hoops, even before a single preseason game, and ended up paving the way for a new NBA. Positionless and pace. Steve Nash before Steph Curry. And it also uncovered gems that had not yet realized their ceilings. Sean Marion, Boris Diaw, who just didn't fit perfectly into traditional positions.
Let's switch a lot more. We'll find a way to use our quickness to defend in different ways, and we'll outscore people. And so I think Mike was brilliant in that, like, he was willing to say, wait, why would I? You know, like, that's almost harder.
And we started off 31-4, and with that, the players got confident. I remember having a meeting, talking to the principals, Joe and Quentin and amar'e and Sean and Steve, and going, I don't know why this is working, to be honest with you. I don't know what we have here, but it's incredibly great.
I think it was more so of us being positionless. You know, Sean was a natural small forward, but he played this power forward. You know, sometimes guarded the centers. You know, I'm a natural power forward, maybe small forward, depending on my agility and quickness, but I played power forward and center back and forth. So we were able to somewhat transcend the game by not really having a position, but yet being able to be versatile within the game.
Taking the reins all the way off. And that's what D'Antoni essentially did for players. And that's why most people have so much success with him offensively. There are no bad shots in terms of shots that you normally make and you shooting them. Every time you toe that line and you're open, he wants you to let it go. And other coaches would kind of, you know, you miss one, get you out of there, or talk to you about, driving the ball. Mike never did that. So you were completely empowered.
We wanted to just wear teams down, and we reveled in watching our opponents just wither away at the end of the game.
We want to run them, but keep tightening our defense up, make them get some stops.
I thought what Mike D'Antoni did for the NBA, he changed it forever, I thought. And Steve was really the engine behind the whole transformation that happened there.
That engine would win the first of his 2 league MVP awards. Plus, D'Antoni, in his first full season as an NBA head coach, won Coach of the Year, one of the largest turnarounds ever, from 29 wins to 62, and the #1 overall seed for the NBA's highest scoring team that season by nearly 7 points per game.
Mike D'Antoni for the Suns, directing a rebirth of Suns basketball. His up-tempo style has created a buzz in Phoenix. Off to a brilliant start, highest scoring team in the NBA.
In fact, the Suns became the first team to average 110 since the Shaq and Penny Orlando Magic did it a decade earlier. In an era when the NBA had slowed to a crawl, Phoenix woke up the league.
For him to say, like, I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing and take that chance and that risk, it definitely brought the best out of me.
He was just the epitome of the prototype point guard, and also changed, I think, with Mike D'Antoni and the offense of 7 seconds or less. It was perfect for him. Probably one of the most fun players that I've ever watched.
But critics pointed to the league worst points per game they allowed to the untrained eye. A large reason for that was because on offense, they scored so quickly. Their games involved more possessions. So from an efficiency standpoint, the Suns were actually ranked in the middle of the pack defensively, league average. But could this new and disruptive approach work in the postseason? That's where franchises are defined. After all, the Moneyball Oakland A's tried to revolutionize baseball and succeeded, but they never got over the hump in the playoffs. Right away, the Suns continued their regular season dominance, sweeping Memphis in the first round and defeating Dirk Nowitzki and Dallas in the second round. But that Mavs series delivered the first of several unlucky twists that would doom this 7 seconds or less era. On a breakaway, Joe Johnson is taken out by Jerry Stackhouse, suffering an orbital bone fracture that ultimately required a metal plate inserted in his cheek. He would not return until Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals after Phoenix had lost the first 2 at home.
As the San Antonio Spurs on the road take Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, and they do so by scoring 43 points in the fourth quarter, shooting an incredible 16 of 22 from the field.
Phoenix would never recover. Joe Johnson, who led the Suns in minutes per game and averaged 17 points, later said, "There's no way you can tell me we wouldn't have been NBA champions if I hadn't gotten hurt." The Spurs would eventually win the NBA title, the first of many what-ifs for the Suns. Johnson would leave in free agency that summer, pursuing a bigger role and larger contract. He actually asked Phoenix not to match the offer, so Phoenix settled for a sign and trade with Atlanta, getting Boris Diaw and 2 first-round picks. Johnson would go on to become a 7-time All-Star, later said, "When I went to Atlanta, I was the old guy trying to show the young guys the way. It was so different. I blossomed into a different player, but it was never the same. When you're on a great team like we had, you don't realize how good you've got it until you go elsewhere, and it's not so easy." Suns owner Robert Sarver: "I beat myself up about that one because we were in a position where that piece could have helped us probably extend our chance to run for a longer period of time." 2006, the hits keep on coming. After losing Joe Johnson, the Suns would also lose leading scorer Amar'e Stoudemire, who underwent microfracture surgery. The original plan was for him to return mid-season, but complications ensued, and he was relegated to just 3 games the entire year. Yet Nash won his second straight MVP.
I've only said this twice in my life, and I said this last year. Some people want to make it, that's a bad white boy.
Well, you know what?
I said that about Larry Bird, Steve Nash. That's a bad white boy.
The Suns grinded through the first 2 rounds, reaching the Western Conference Finals against Dallas. The Spurs had already been eliminated. The path was open even without Stoudemire. But they couldn't even celebrate a Game 1 win because they lost starting guard Raja Bell, who averaged 15 points to a torn left calf muscle.
Well, what's new? You know, we had so many guys get hurt this year. Obviously, I don't even want to think about what it would be like to not have him. He's such a huge part of our team. He's got to be one of the most underrated players in the league. He plays both ends of the floor. His offensive game's expanding every day, and it'd be really, really tough for us, especially given the lack of depth we've played with so far.
Bell would miss the next 2 games of the series, which Phoenix lost. He returned for Game 4, a Phoenix win, to even up the series at 2 games apiece. But Bell wasn't the same, mustering just 9 combined points over the next 2 games, and the Suns were eliminated. Yet another what if for Phoenix. The next season, likely Phoenix's best chance. Stoudemire is back, healthy, and played all 82 games. The Suns won 61 games, including a 17-game win streak. Nash finished second in the MVP race to Dirk Nowitzki. But Dirk's Mavs got bounced in the first round. All that's standing in Phoenix's way is the Spurs. Beat them, and the franchise's elusive first title is theirs. The bad luck continues right away. Game 1, 3 minutes to go. Suns down a point. Nash collides with Tony Parker. The Suns staff could not stop his nose from bleeding. Nash had to stay on the bench because of the blood, missing 45 seconds of the final minute, and the Spurs eke out a win. Yet another unlucky and bizarre twist, which peaked in Game 4. Phoenix was preserving a late lead that would tie the series when a significant moment in league history occurred. Robert Horry hip-checked Steve Nash, causing the Phoenix bench to react.
One of the biggest heartbreaks to me in my years with the Suns was that unbelievable flagrant foul in San Antonio when Robert Horry just completely low-bridged Steve Nash at the most flagrant foul I've ever seen.
Here it is Nash being chased, and they had a look out. As Horry sent Nash flying, and Bell goes at Horry. Nash got up, he wants to go at Horry. The Suns did not appreciate the foul by Robert Horry.
I was trying to go there and take the charge, but I got there a little late, so I had to just, do a little body check.
Well, he just body checked me out of bounds. I mean, I understand he's frustrated, it happens. I'm sorry it happened to him, but I mean, he did body check me.
As the hip check of Robert Horry happened to Steve, it wasn't truly a surprise because we were 2 teams that didn't like one another. Robert Horry is a champion, but also a chippy player, which is why he was in the game at that point in time, ready to commit a foul like that.
Yes, the Suns still hung on and won the game, but the incident was far from over. The league reviewed footage between games.
Boris Diaw and amar'e Stoudemire violated the rule that required that players during an altercation, which at that time was between Horry and Steve Nash, during an altercation, you could not leave the vicinity of your own bench. Boris Diaw and amar'e Stoudemire did, which required an automatic 1-game suspension.
We do have the most powerful microscopes and telescopes in the world in Arizona. You could use those instruments and not find a shred of fairness or common sense in that decision. So that's kind of how I feel.
When I saw Robert Horry just knock Steve into the scoreboard, I'm walking up to see if Steve okay. And as I'm walking, I'm not realizing, but I'm not on the bench anymore. I'm actually walking closer to Steve. I'm actually getting closer to him, which is a natural reaction for someone to check on your team. I was walking toward him.
No, and I understand that they had a rule, but in the spirit of everything, I just didn't think it was a good decision. I just thought that they were applying letter of the law.
By the letter of the law, the NBA did the right thing. I remember years earlier, 97 probably, Miami and New York got into a brawl and like 6 guys took one step onto the floor and went back and they all got suspended. And I remember at the time thinking, that's insane. Like, let's have some common sense here. But David Stern was so adamant about getting this stuff cleaned up that he was going to suspend anybody.
I will say that the commissioner and I did have a heated exchange, probably louder at his end, when we discussed that. And maybe the only time in my life there was a 6-month period there where we actually didn't speak. And for somebody who's your mentor, that's an uncomfortable position.
We didn't wrestle very much with the decision because that rule is a pretty bright line rule. If you leave the vicinity of the bench, it is an automatic 1-game suspension.
Somewhat confusing to say it's a clear rule when the key word in the clause is vicinity, which I would think leaves a lot up to interpretation. Nonetheless, the Suns were shorthanded for Game 5. The Suns played inspired, leading by as many as 16 points in the first half and by 11 at the break. But just not enough, and Nash was just 6 of 19 from the field.
They go to Ginobili, his shot good with time running out on the shot clock. He hits a 3-pointer. Oh, brother.
You don't dwell on it too much, but it was a downer. And then the biggest downer came, we had them back home. We had them in the 5th game, even without those guys being suspended. We had them on the ropes and we let them off right at the end.
We was up 15, 20 points at halftime. I had like 25 first half. I don't get but 1 shot the second half. So like, that wasn't nothing they did. That was something we stopped doing. So like when you are a team, everybody talking about the adjustments and or what somebody's doing, not doing. Hey, you a coach. You got to make adjustments, man.
That's a big blow. You know, I'm a firm believer if all things are right, you take it all. But that's the way it happens in basketball. 1 possession, 1 play. The bounce of the ball goes the other way. And so that was heartache. That was a heartbreak because, from that point forward, things are never the same.
He would have won the championship. It would have been a game changer for the Phoenix Suns franchise, and who knows what would have happened at that point.
Well, given the fact that the Spurs went on to win the championship and beat the Cavaliers 4-0, I would say yes. If the Phoenix Suns had reached the finals, they probably would have won an NBA championship.
I think that was probably Phoenix's best chance to win a title. They were right in their sweet spot. Nash was in his prime. Yeah, that's one that Suns fans will always look back on and shake their heads.
Just when you think the story couldn't get any darker, the referee who worked Game 3 of that series, Tim Donaghy, was arrested by the FBI in 2007 for betting on games he officiated. And in the aftermath, Donaghy made a stunning claim. Obviously, everybody knows I refereed one of those famous games with the San Antonio Spurs, where the Suns were definitely the better team in that series, and San Antonio went on to win that series. Tommy Nunez, who was the group supervisor at the time for that series, didn't like Sarver, who was the owner of the Suns at that time, and was always pointing out in the tape sessions things to call against Phoenix and things not to concentrate on against San Antonio. I think it put San Antonio at an advantage. The former county attorney for Maricopa County thought it was serious enough to ask the FBI to investigate whether Donaghy had intentionally miscalled 2 specific Phoenix Suns road playoff games, including Game 3 of that Spurs series. Donaghy again. There's no doubt I feel the Phoenix Suns were the best team in the league in 2007, and that whole series was officiated poorly. The investigation never produced charges related to those games. Donaghy is a convicted felon. His credibility is rightfully questioned. But for Suns fans, it was one more thing that went wrong. Coming oh so close took its toll, and the Suns abandoned their blueprint. In February 2008, new general manager Steve Kerr traded Sean Marion for Shaquille O'Neal.
Any move you make is a little bit of a roll of the dice. You never really know what's going to happen, but you have to talk about it internally and get everybody's opinion and kind of try to envision it. And again, I get back to the fact that we were only going to feel comfortable doing it if our medical people felt that Shaq had some left in the tank.
and if he felt that way as well. And today we were very satisfied on both fronts.
Marion, in many ways, the heart of the system, gone for an aging Shaq who just couldn't keep up with the 7 seconds or less pace. It wasn't just a bad trade, it was a philosophical betrayal of everything D'Antoni had built. D'Antoni left for the Knicks shortly after, the architect seemingly forced to walk away from his own creation. Perhaps some solace or just irony that twists the knife even further. Marion won a championship with the Mavericks in 2011, playing a similar hybrid role. Boris Diaw also won a ring, him with the Spurs in 2014, also playing a unique role thanks to a skill set he discovered in Phoenix. The players they developed, the hidden gems they assembled, they won titles, just not in Phoenix.
Very disappointing. At the same time, I think I have a good perspective on it. We were about as close to a championship over the course of our run as anyone who's not been to the finals, and probably some who have been to the finals. So we were a little unlucky, but we didn't get there, and so you got to take that. That's what sports is about: is taking the pain and letting that rub in your wounds, and that's why winning it is so special.
Steve Nash did finally get a ring as a consultant for the 2022 Golden State Warriors, but still plenty of what-ifs for that Suns era. Every team in the NBA today runs some version of what the Suns did. The three-point revolution, pace and space, positionless basketball. It all traces back to the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns. They changed the game. They just never got to finish what they started.